Welcome to this episode of Stranger Stitches, where we set small fires in dark corners of crime and history. I'm rated at least PG for language and content. Listener beware. This is not a news story. I'm just an old lady with a crochet hook and a microphone. But buckle up, Buttercup. Today we take a look into the case of the haunted hotels. Hotels by their nature are transient spaces, people passing through for all kind of reasons. Work, vacation, just traveling, and some folks trying to get away. And they leave behind more than wrinkled sheets and empty bourbon bottles. They leave traces of their stories, their heartaches, and unfortunately sometimes their final moments. This episode will explore some phenomenon, then some of them have gotten kind of famous, that have happened in some very popular hotels. These locations range from opulent high-rises to little stick-built cabins. And they often have a very dark past of either violence or unresolved events. And that contributes to their spectral reputation. We're recording outside today. I know you can hear my birds. I don't know if it's quieter out here or in the house. Either way, I'm not going to have much privacy today. But let's start with one of the most famous haunted hotels, and I know you know it, the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. I used to live in a little place called Red Feather Lakes, Colorado, which is just over the river and through the woods to Estes Park, so I got to go there fairly often. And it was a nice place for dinner. You needed reservations, all that kind of stuff. But here's what I did. After dinner, and the dessert was delicious, I took a little wander around. And I pushed some buttons I probably shouldn't have, the ones that say employees only. Well, that don't mean much to me. I went down through the employee tunnels from the kitchen, and then up the back elevator. And I didn't see anything, but there are some spaces that, they gave me goosebumps. I got a cold chill, and this was like July. Yeah, so even July in Colorado can be kind of chilly, but it wasn't that kind of chilly. I went up to the 4th floor, where it said that most of the happenings, and it's the most active area, the cleaning staff will only go up there in pairs. Yeah, it's that creepy. So the Stanley Hotel is kind of embraced. It's haunted nature, and they will give you a ghost tour for $25, which I once did gladly pay, but they only show you what they want you to see. I took myself on a little tour, and I got corrected, but I'll leave that story for another time, or not at all. But I didn't want to be influenced. I wanted to feel what I felt, see what I saw, without the influence of another person's words. And I tell you, it's definitely got a vibe. This is also the place that inspired Stephen King's book, The Shining. It's based on fact. Stephen and Tabitha King were staying there in October of 1974. And they were there during almost the closing season for the hotel. It was big, echoey, mostly empty. And the hotel had kind of fallen on hard times since its heyday. Well, once Stephen King had penned this book, The Shining, sort of put him back on the map. He wrote the story in kind of a condensed version about a lot of the ghosts that live there. Let's start with our one spectral entity, Elizabeth Wilson. She is a very dedicated employee who survived a gas explosion in room 217 back in 1911. Should have sent her to glory, but instead, years later after she did pass, she came back to work, tidying up after messy guests. Visitors report finding their belongings mysteriously organized, suitcases repacked very precisely, and a distinct feeling that someone's kind of fussing over them. She's particularly helpful to single men. Jim Carrey also stayed in that room while he was filming Dumb and Dumber. He left that room very shortly after and never said why. We have Freeland and Flora Stanley. That's the hotel's founding couple. Flora is said to play the piano. in the grand lobby in the dead of night, treating the sleepless guests to some ethereal music. Oscar tends to be more elusive, but some staffers swear they've seen his figure walking around and inspecting the premises. It's kind of like he's trying to make sure that they stick to those high standards he demanded. Lord Dunraven, which I firmly suspect was not his real name. He's this shit swizzle. He's always stirring up something, and he never learned any good manners. He's got sticky fingers for jewelry, which he hides in closets. Yeah, he can't really take it from you, but you will find it displaced. It's hard to catch him on camera. So, take it with a grain of salt if you want to. A believer believes. But here's what else he does. He is rude. And he breathes down the back of ladies' necks like he's standing right behind them. Breathing down their neck, literally. Lots of people report that. Then we have the pastry chef. And he is smelled more than he's seen. People walking through the kitchen and stuff, they will smell fresh baked bread when nothing's in the oven. It's like the pastry chef just came back to work after his death. There's an unidentified child that plays in the hallway. I think if y'all saw the movie The Shining, they represented that one as twins. Creepy little twins. But it is said that this one not only plays in the hallway, but it will also play with your hair while you're asleep. The most notable rooms, and the rooms that are also the hardest to book, sometimes years in advance. Room 217, that's the one where Elizabeth Wilson is. And room 413, and the entire fourth floor. It's where they consider to be the most active for spiritual presences. And the concert hall. Well, a lot of these places, the cleaning staff and the hotel staff only go there in pairs because, that's how it feels. Well, in the big concert hall, Harry Houdini once himself performed there, and people feel like he had left a little bit of his magic behind. So let's take a trip from Colorado to California, where we're going to talk about the Cecil Hotel. Take a seat, because this is the Hotel California's evil twin sister, and trust me, you can check out anytime you like, but some folks never left at all. It's got a long history of tragedy. In 1924, when folks had more hope than good sense, the Cecil Hotel started its life as a real fancy establishment for the well-to-do crowd visiting in L.A., but the Great Depression hit like a bomb, and the Grand Dame's fortunes went south. Yeah, the whole neighborhood around it turned into what they call Skid Row. And let me tell you, that ain't no place you want to be after dark, and possibly not even in the daylight. This hotel collected tragedy like Meemaw collected wicker baskets, racking up at least 16 reported suicides, murders, poisonings, and Lord knows what else. The 1930s, sweet Jesus, that was hard on this place. At least 6 poor souls decided they'd had enough of the world, choosing to exit via poison, gunshots, throat slitting, or taking a final leap from a high window. This hotel was collecting bodies like the funeral home was having a sale. Dorothy Jean Purcell. Let's go on to 1944. This story will break your heart. She was staying there one night with her boyfriend, and she didn't want to wake him up. This poor little 19-year-old girl didn't even know she was pregnant. I know sometimes that can happen. Sometimes there just aren't symptoms. In her confusion and panic, mercy damn, she threw the child out the window, thinking the little one had already passed. Can you imagine the horror when she realized what she'd done? That kind of tragedy leaves a mark on the place that even soap and holy water can't take away. All because she didn't want to wake up her boyfriend. Pauline Otten in 1962 was having a big old ugly-ass argument with her boyfriend. After the fight, it must have been uglier than homemade sin, she decides to take a flying leap from the 9th floor. But this isn't the end of the story. Her landing took out an innocent man named George Giannini, who was minding his own business walking down the sidewalk. She fell on him and took him out with her. Well, the police thought that this was some sort of star-crossed lover situation until they noticed that George still had his shoes on. Now, not to be too graphic, but an impact like that gonna blow your shoes off. That's what, yeah. And some eyewitness accounts came around and said, nope, George didn't jump. She fell on him. So if that wasn't enough to give this place a reputation darker than Cajun coffee, the Cecil decided to roll out the red carpet for not one, but two serial killers who called this place home sweet home. Richard Ramirez, that's right, the Night Stalker. The devil incarnate, and he'd probably been proud to be called that. He stayed on the 14th floor during the mid-'80s, and he was paying about $14 a night, which should tell you something about the accommodations. This monster would come home from doing his dirty deeds, dump his bloody clothes in the hotel dumpster, yeah, like he was throwing away yesterday's newspaper, and the staff said he would just wander through the lobby wearing nothing but his drawers, and nobody batted an eye because, well, that was just him in a typical Tuesday at the Cecil. The hotel became his safe space. That's pretty twisted. Then there's Jack Unterweger. He's from Austria, and he had already committed a bunch of crimes over there. Anyhow, Austria thought it was a good idea to let him go, and he come over here to do some interviews and some news stories. Oh, word has it that he picked the Cecil specifically because of its connection to Ramirez, like some kind of pilgrimage he was on. He spent his time hunting the working girls in the surrounding area. Yeah, downtown L.A. was his personal hunting ground. Goldie Osgood. Well, this poor woman was found beaten and stabbed to death in her ransacked room, and to this day nobody knows who sent her to meet her maker. Her killer could be out there walking free somewhere, and who knows if they ain't done something else. Gives you chills, doesn't it? Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, was a beautiful young woman whose murder shocked the nation in 1947. She supposedly spent her last days at the Cecil before someone cut her in half and left her in a field. A passerby thought it was a mannequin, and let me tell y'all what I know, it's never a mannequin. And to this day, that one remains unsolved. We have the Lisa Lam tragedy in 2013, and I'm not going to tell you too much about her right now because she's going to get her own episode. There was just too much to fit it all into one story. This is the one where I know you've seen the film of her in the elevator, waving her arms, looks like she's waving at somebody outside, holding the door open, acting kind of, odd. So she goes missing for 3 weeks. The hotel guests start complaining about the water smelling and, get this, tasting funny. Like it stinks. People went to solve the mystery. A worker at the hotel went upstairs, checked the water tanks, and guess what they found? Miss Elisa was in the water tank. Probably been there for about 3 weeks. So it's no longer called the Cecil. It is now called the Stay on Main Hotel and Hostel. It cost about $100 million for the renovation in 2015. They converted it into micro apartments and affordable housing, which is a good idea considering the area, but you can polish a pig's ass and it's still pork. Let's move over to Texas and go to the Menger Hotel in San Antonio. It was established in 1859, right next door to the Alamo Battlegrounds. It's said to have 45 different spirits and is considered one of America's most haunted hotels. During the quarantine, I was stationed there through my work for about a month. I was a professional driver, and they needed somebody who stayed in a bubble to be on call. Now, fortunately, I didn't really have a whole lot to do, and just like when I was at the Stanley, I pushed buttons I shouldn't have, and I took myself on a grand tour. They didn't much mind, wasn't nothing going on there anyway. Very few people were staying there. And I was in the older part of the hotel. Okay, I'm not going to go into my story right yet, but I will get there. Sally White, a beloved chambermaid from the 1870s, was murdered by her jealous husband right there on the premises. Her spirit is known for a sweet disposition, and she's often seen in a maid's uniform on the third floor. Sometimes she tucks her guests into bed, arranges their belongings, and the hotel even displays in frame on the wall the receipt for her funeral expenses. President Theodore Roosevelt, a frequent guest who recruited his Rough Riders in the Menger Bar in 1898, his ghost is often seen at the bar. Yeah, he's there for a drink and some conversation. Captain Richard King, who was founder of the King Ranch, is kind of a big deal here in Texas. He died in his suite in 1885. His spirit is believed to roam his former suite and the hotel. He's often seen entering his room or heard through footsteps and some whispered conversations. William Menger, the hotel's founder, whose unexpected death in 1871 contributes to the lore. His spirit is seen toasting at his favorite bar spot between midnight and early morning. Some people believe he also plays the piano. There's some Confederate soldiers, and it is believed that due to the proximity to the Alamo, that's why the soldiers are over there, they appear and disappear. They are called the Desolate Sentinel in the courtyard, and their courtyard is real nice. I've been down there, but I didn't feel or hear anything over there. There's also a word of a ghost they call the Forlorn Trumpeter, and the helpful ghost of room 207. He was a medic or a medical person, and he's there too. The Phantom Photographer is a ghostly figure from the late 1900s, and you can only see him reflected in mirrors, and he's standing there holding an old-fashioned camera. The mysterious housekeeper named Mabel, and it is said that she inhabited room 217. Guests have reported receiving helpful phone calls from Mabel for wake-up calls and then finding their rooms and items neatly rearranged. The paranormal activity beyond specific apparitions, guests report cold spots, whispering voices, including speaking in Spanish, disappearing dancers in the ballroom, flickering lights, an elevator that has a mind of its own. Well, I tell you what, in a hotel this old, and the elevators are tried to, kept original and stuff like that, these elevators often stop on the third floor. Coincidence? Maybe. They've embraced the hauntings. The Menger Hotel embraces it, and they offer tours and special seasonal cocktails. Well, now let me tell you about my own experience. I think I met Sally. Like I said, I was there during the quarantine, and I'm sure I made myself a royal pain in the ass. Y'all know I can't sit too long, but I also couldn't go anywhere. So I was all over that hotel, whether I was supposed to or not. I made excuses to help the staff, like roll silverware and stuff so I could go downstairs. My room was in the oldest part of the hotel, and it's also one of the smallest rooms. That's all my boss would spring for since I was going to be there for so long. And it got absolutely frigid cold in there at night. I had an extra blanket at the foot of the bed to take care of all that. But about 3 a.m., I was freezing, and I didn't want to get up. You sound asleep. Oh, I don't want to, but you're freezing. And I promise you, this is from my own self, I felt the blanket pull up around my shoulders. I didn't see it, but it happened. It wasn't scary. It wasn't worrisome. It's just a thing that happened. I said thank you, rolled over, and went back to sleep. Well, the desk clerk and I had become acquainted by this time, so I told him about it the next day. He let out a big old chuckle. I knew he thought I was crazy, but he didn't. He said that was Sally, the former maid who was killed in that part of the hotel, and she continues to take care of her desk. She never tries to scare anyone on that floor in that wing. And guess what? My room, reportedly, is the only one that ever got cold. Let's head back up the East Coast to the Hotel Chelsea in Manhattan, New York, USA. History and artistic hub built in 1883, 1884. This was a utopian co-op. It quickly became a haven for New York City's art scene, attracting legendary writers, musicians, artists. Manager Stanley Bard from 1964 fostered this bohemian atmosphere and often accepted art in lieu of rent. Some of those paintings that he accepted are worth big bucks. Some of the notable residents and tragedies. There was Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen in 1978. Sid Vicious, bassist for the Sex Pistols, allegedly stabbed his girlfriend Nancy Spungen to death in the bathroom of their suite. I've got an episode of the incident coming up where I give you all those details. Their room was later split in two to deter it from becoming a shrine. There were in room 100, which is now room 103, just saying. Dylan Thomas, in 1953, this Welsh poet was already sicker than a dog when he dragged himself to the Chelsea Hotel. Folks were already saying he looked pale and delicate and shaky and not his usual robust self. He was already very ill when he got there. Bless him. He was trying to keep up appearances, even managing to do the first rehearsal of Under Milkwood and making a trip to the White Horse Tavern down in Greenwich Village. But that poor soul's body was giving out on him, and he checked in to a hotel for what would be his final time. He actually died at the hospital, and initially it was blamed on booze, but the lung doctor said he had some sort of advanced lung disease, and he was a heavy smoker. Oh boy. His suite was room 205, and it is preserved to this day. He's the guy that wrote "Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night." Yeah, but he did go far too soon. Edie Sedgwick in 1967 accidentally set her room on fire. She was born Edith Minturn Sedgwick. As an American actress, model, and socialite, she's known for being one of Andy Warhol's superstars and It Girls, starred in several of his short films in the 60s. Her prominence was, she was the socialite, and Vogue magazine named her Youth Quaker in 1965. A friend and muse of Andy Warhol, he famously said, "Do you think Edie will let us film her as she commits suicide?" Yeah, that's what he said, and she had a lot of problems, and they weren't really kept quiet. One reporter said that she died from falling asleep with a cigarette in her hand and set fire to her room, but most sources say that she died face down with her head in a pillow. She'd only been married 4 months. Other luminaries like Mark Twain, Arthur Miller, Bob Dylan, Janis Joplin, Leonard Cohen, Patti Smith, Arthur C. Clarke, he's the guy that wrote 2001: A Space Odyssey, are among the many who lived and stayed there, contributing to it's an enormous factory of thoughts and ideas. The hotel sort of fell into disrepair, and Mr. Bard was ousted as manager in 2007. There was a lot of disputes around that, and then the hotel went under a controversial decade-long conversion into a luxury hotel, and it reopened in 2022. Concerns were raised about its impact on the artistic character, that the hotel had kind of lost its voice. While it's not as overtly haunted as some, it does have a long history of intense creative energy and personal dramas, tragic deaths that's led to its own spectral lore. The lingering presence of his famous and sometimes former residents is a key part of the mystique. And there's a lot of other notable places out there that have their own claim to their ghost. If this has caught your interest, look for one near you. They are scattered out there all over the place. Pack your bags, take your rosary, take a shot of bourbon, and get yourself on the road. Let's go up north, the Equinox Golf Resort and Spa in Manchester, Vermont. This place is haunted by none other than Mary Todd Lincoln herself. That poor woman, she had enough heartache in her life, and apparently she's not ready to rest. Guests report rocking chairs moving all by themselves, household items getting rearranged like she's trying to make the place presentable for company. Imagine waking up and finding Abraham Lincoln's widow tidying up your room. Now that's what I call presidential service. Down south, we have the Bourbon Orleans Hotel. Now, we say it Nolens, Louisiana. Y'all might say New Orleans. But this place has had a lot of things going on there. It started off as a fancy ballroom where rich folks just waltzed the night away. Then it became a theater, then a hospital during the Civil War, then an orphanage, and finally a convent. It's no wonder this place is crawling with spirits. The poor little souls who died of yellow fever and the epidemics still play in the hallways. A lonesome Confederate soldier still keeps watch. Phantom dancers still glide across the old ballroom floor. New Orleans, that's where even the dead know how to party. I've been there. The staff is amazing. There's the Hollywood Roosevelt in Los Angeles. This is where some magic happens, both on screen and off. Marilyn Monroe's spirit is said to live there. Guests catch glimpses of her platinum blonde hair in their guest room mirrors. It seems like she's still checking her lipstick. There's a little girl in a blue dress that skips up and down the hallways. Some folks say that it is Shirley Temple, still tap dancing through the afterlife. Hollywood never really lets anyone retire, do they? There's some more Southern hospitality. The Marshall House in Savannah, Georgia. This place has seen a whole lot of suffering. It was used as a hospital during those yellow fever epidemics and around the time of the Civil War. Civil War soldiers missing arms and legs, still limping and gimping their way up and down the hallway. It kind of seems like they want to find their missing pieces. The kids that never got to grow up are playing marbles in the corridor. You can hear the marbles clinking. Joel Chandler Harris, the man who gave us the Uncle Remus stories, apparently still pecks away at his typewriter in the dead of night. I wish he'd shut up. And they also have a phantom cat that you can see prowling around. Some people think it's a real cat, but blink your eyes and it's gone. Even the pets don't want to check out a Southern hospitality. Let's take a look at a couple of international places. The Fairmont Banff Springs in Banff, Alberta, Canada. It's like a castle, and it's haunted by this bride who took a tumble down a staircase on her wedding day. She is still dancing around the ballroom, probably wondering where her groom has wandered off to. The former head bellman is still making his rounds. I don't know if the bellman is doing this or if it's another one, but some guests are reporting getting their pillows yanked out from under their heads in the middle of the night, finding bloody handprints when there's no reason for them to be there, and sometimes even getting shoved completely out of bed. Canadians only get hostile after death. Well, in life, they're very nice people. I've been to this one, and I'm not going to tell you for a minute that it is an economy hotel. It certainly is not. But if you want to be treated like royalty and live like a princess for a couple days, get yourself up there. We have the Shelburne Hotel in Dublin, Ireland. Poor little Mary Masters, just 7 years old when cholera took her home. This little girl turns taps on and off, giggling in empty hallways, slamming doors and having a grand old time. Folks see her mostly on the 6th floor, and it seems like she's just looking for somebody to play with. The Langham Hotel in London. Well, these British ghosts really know how to make an impression. There's a doctor who murdered his wife and then took his own life, and he shows up every October in full Victorian dress, like he's got a standing appointment. So, back in America, the Lizzie Borden House in Fall River, Massachusetts. Y'all all know what happened there, and how could it not be haunted? The Casa Monica in St. Augustine, Florida. The original owner's ghost apparently likes to have pillow fights. Jekyll Island in Georgia, at the hotel, J.P. Morgan's ghost still smokes cigars. Can you imagine smoking in the house these days? We know better, but I do love me a good cigar. If I were to go on and mention every hotel or every temporary accommodation that claims they have a ghost, we'd be here for 6 weeks, and you know we ain't got time for that. But the couple things they do have in common is that these spirits seem to be there with unfinished business. Things like sudden illness, a bride that never made it to her wedding, people that want to continue working there even after their jobs are done. This is where I take a little side quest into some numerology. Now here's what I've noticed. Numbers that add up to 10. For example, there's a couple of places that had hauntings in rooms 217. Taken individually, 2 plus 1 plus 7 equals 10. Yeah, number 10. The hauntings that occurred in different hotels in different places had most notable hauntings on the floor 4 and on the 6th floor. Added together, those equal 10. Now, this is all something that's in my own head. Maybe I'm reaching a little bit here, but I'm into numerology, and I think it's just too big of a coincidence not to mention. But let me tell you, in numerology, what the number 10 stands for? Yeah. Taken separately, the digits, number 1 is reaching into the void. Yeah, and 0 means to begin again. And taken together, the new beginnings of number 10, that's what it means, new beginnings. The end of one cycle and the beginning of another. It can represent new starts and new opportunities. But that's just something out of my own mind, and just thought it was an interesting coinky-dink. So how do y'all feel about our little trip around the world? You know, a believer believes, and a non-believer, well, it's just not an issue. So would that make any difference to you about when you plan your next vacation or hotel stay? Would you look for some place that's haunted? Or is it just a fun ghost story? Nothing beats a real good ghost story, does it? But for my own self, here's what I want to do. I want to check in to one of those hotels where the ladies will repack your luggage. Because you see, I travel a lot, travel often, have done so all my life. I'm an expert packer. I can go a week with just a carry-on. And that includes a change of dress clothes, just in case. I want to leave my bag or my luggage on the foot of the bed and see if there's something they'd mess with, if there's something I'm missing or not doing. Right? Or maybe they would just look at my bag and shake their head and said, this woman is obsessive. That could probably happen too. But I need to wrap it up. So, if you decide to stay at a haunted hotel, put it in the comments. Let me know where y'all go and if you had any experience. If you have any experiences from the past, put it in the comments. I always want to know what y'all are up to. Just remember, y'all, if you hear things go bump in the night, it might just be a hotel's way of saying, hey and welcome. Sweet dreams, y'all. I'll see you next time.